All right, so this video has been inspired by Mocha Mommy's most recent video about men's mental health. So, um, Mr. Uppity left me with a lifetime of jewels, both literally and figuratively. And I wanted to chime in on that um, based on what he demonstrated to me. So, my late Mr. Uppity put himself in therapy. Um, I mean, if I could tell you what kind of a genius this man was and how being a genius can depress you because you know the reality of everything. Um, it just the mind on this man. I mean, I've never. Whew, okay, I can do this. I've never seen anything like it. And Mr. Uppity put himself in therapy 1 year and just stayed. And this is prior to ever having met me. And I'm telling you, that is how he made himself the man to bag me. That is how he made himself the man to get me. Because here's the deal. Um, so many men, they are cemeteries of their own potential. It's just the reality. So many men are cemeteries of their own potential. Their potential just lives and dies in them and sits in there dead like a corpse in a plot in a grave because of mental illness that they don't want to claim. You see your boy go off, Mokomami mentioned, substance abuse and things like this. And, it's, oh, I'm just going to be a man. I'm going to be a man. I'm just going to man up and and I'm like, you don't have the answers, Sway. And it's okay. And it's actually more man of you to admit, to be able to have your masculinity intact and admit, I don't have all the answers and I need to go get them. Mr. Uppity was a manager of so much, was an owner of so much. He could not afford to mismanage because of mental health, because of a mental breakdown, or because of, depression can make you lazy and lethargic. And he didn't have time for any of that. So, years before I met him and into his death, he stayed in therapy. And there are so many men that he would sun every day. I know there are black men. Well, let me not say that because I don't want to go that route. All I'm saying is that all manner of people worked under Mr. Uppity. All manner of people, white men, Asian men, black men, all manner of people. He really had a heart for getting men to where they needed to be. So he definitely hired more men than women. He was a man's man. He's a brother's brother. One of those men who considers himself his brother's keeper. Um, but so much of that he facilitated for himself with therapy. And he actually did couples therapy with his former wife, and she was the one who wanted to leave therapy. Some of her issues were being pointed out, and she didn't take very well to that. And we all know how that ended because I'm here because I ended up, here. So I say this because in so many aspects, Mr. Uppity is such a unicorn. Normally, you have a woman dragging men to get mental health and dragging men into couples therapy and dragging men into the hospital and into whatever else. And Mr. Uppity wasn't afraid to be put on a little bit of medication. He wasn't afraid to obtain a little bit of education from a counselor. Whether that counselor was much younger than him or much older than him, he respected scholarship and understood what he was doing with that. And it didn't blight his masculinity in any kind of way because his masculinity was so stable. He wasn't he wasn't convinced that he was something less because he was in therapy. He wasn't convinced that he was something less because sometimes you go to therapy and it's just like, all right, well, you don't struggle with depression because you're just some crazy person. You actually have a chemical imbalance and you got to work on your gut health. You need to take these vitamins. And until this kicks in for you, go ahead and take this pill. And it's like, all right, well, I'm taking this pill, but now this pill makes me a little bit, sleepy. All right, well, this one will wake you up. Well, now I can't get to sleep because this one is doing its job. All right, we'll take this one, right? This is something that we belittle people all the time over on YouTube. Ha ha, you crazy. Ha ha, you take pills. Ha ha, you need to get back on your meds. Ha ha. And all the people who talk like this will never run the empire that Mr. Uppity ran. Will never own, will never have, will never do, will never see what Mr. Uppity did, and it's because he took care of himself. You have to be man enough to do some of this stuff because so many men identify this as a weakness. But you can look at incel culture. You can look at what's going on in these YouTube spaces with these male podcasts. So many of these male podcasts are they're really revealing men's poor mental health. The kinds of advice they give one another. I just hear a wounded boy. I hear a wounded child. And after spending 10 years of my life as a school teacher, I know what a wounded little boy sounds like. But this is a man who had no time to waste, who made the most of every minute, hour, second, and did that in part by being in therapy and not shying away from taking care of mental health. Some people, they're so ashamed of, a little Zoloft, a little, what's it called, Lexapro, oh, no, no, I'm gonna just go to the gym. I'm gonna just go to the gym. And then, like Mocha Mommy said, you don't get home from the bar because you're drunk. You don't make it home. And because of you, maybe somebody else doesn't because you had to drink away your problems. Uh, Mr. Uppity would tell me that his father had a drinking problem, and his father was also a soldier with Purple Hearts, and he wanted to make sure that that was not a thing for his children, and he did, and he raised blue ribbon children 4.0, just good at everything that they do because he was able to be such a present, hands-on dad. It didn't have to be distant because, oh, I need to hide my temper problem from my kids. I need to hide the fact that I'm inept from my kids. I need to hide the fact that I'm too sensitive and I'm too irritable and I might flash and fall out and whoop whoop. Some men, they desert because of that. They desert because they don't want people to see what kind of failures they are. And he was able to be so hands-on, so involved, so every single moment. I mean, he could quit a six-figure job just because, or he could get rid of, a six-figure project just because he wants to spend more time with his kids. But he gave himself the ability to do that. He blessed himself with the ability to do that by investing in his mental health. I mean, when you make that kind of money, it's not subsidized by the government. Ain't no Medicaid and Medicare for that. You pay. He was willing to pay for a sound mind. And you have men who are on Obamacare who are not even willing to show up to a counselor's office. Therapy was so funny yesterday. I remember getting on YouTube and saying that, I was going to commit myself to talking about mental health on YouTube. Therapy was such a joke 3 to 5 years ago, bro. Therapy, mental health, talking about mental issues. It was such a joke. Black people were just laughing. I'm like, you're not laughing now. So much has been exposed with these fallouts and the way that people carry themselves, and it becomes so clear like we actually have a lot of rampant mental illness going on in the Black community. In fact, I must have said something a few years ago how I feel about being Black in America and how that should qualify you for free mental health care off the bat because it's hard to be Black in America. Specifically African American, specifically like born here, like it's a difficult thing mentally. The way that people treat you, the way that the entire society will gaslight you. Racism doesn't exist. Your problems don't exist. Just, blah, blah, blah. It's rough. It's rough. I don't even have to go down the listicle of things because if you're Black, and I don't have to explain it to you. But no, Mr. Uppity knew no chip on his shoulder. He's like, nope, preventative. And when I talk about his dominance and when I talk about his leadership and the things I mean, I could say rulership. When I talk about that, I mean, when you're considering what manner of man this is, he didn't have a peer to tell him to go get mental health, to go get counseling or have a therapist or something like this. A lot of men are just like, come on, man, you don't need that. Man, you need a girl, you need a drink, you need to smoke this right here. Nah, just super responsible for everything, including himself, super dutiful, super faithful in his duties to himself and others. And part of that was having a sound enough mind to do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, being a fuckboy could be a personality disorder. I don't know. Being an itch-igga could be a personality disorder. I don't know. Being an incel could be a symptom of PTSD. I don't know. More study could be done on these things if these men would go. They wouldn't be on YouTube crying every day. They wouldn't be on YouTube crying every day. They wouldn't be on podcasts crying every day and trying to make sense out of, spreading the gospel of dysfunctional relationships. They might figure it out. They might discover love for themselves in therapy, and then somebody else can come and love them because people can only meet you at the level that you are at with yourself. If you a hoe to you, you a hoe to me too. People can only meet you at the level that you have met yourself. And I'm telling you, therapy will introduce you to the innermost part of you. It's dark work, it's shadow work, like how I talked about in some of my dark femininity videos. It's doing the Michael Jackson. I'm starting with the man in the mirror and I'm asking him to change his ways. It's getting a hold of that thing about yourself that isn't so becoming and turning it into something that is. It's maximizing your strengths and minimizing your weaknesses. I'm very proud to have had a man who beat the curve, who was just, I mean, existing above and beyond that bell curve of, toxic masculinity. It's like, no, if I need the help, I'm gonna go get it. And I'm telling you, I've never seen anything like him. I'm not saying nothing like him exists. I mean, I've clearly seen, I've seen Mark Dean and Jordan Peterson. I would say that they're definitely, peers, peers of Mr. Uppity. But I mean, I'm just so impressed because oftentimes, like Mocha Mommy said, it's a woman dragging a man to get his mental health checked, which is why I think it's the most sordid thing. Sordid, SORDID, not sorted. Uh, the most sordid thing for these men to be having this discussion in the manosphere. Oh, do women care about men's mental health? You wouldn't be killing us up how you are. It wouldn't be every 5.5 hours that you take one of us out. And more than that, taking one of yourselves out if you had better mental health. It's always a woman trying to force a man into the doctor's office. It's all, and you know it. Like, I don't know what the gaslighting and the blame shifting is, but it's trifling. It's trifling, which makes my late Mr. Uppity even more of a unicorn. I'm so proud to have belonged to such a distinguished man. In his ability to be a shepherd instead of a sheep, he said, I'll go. Before anyone had to send him, he said, I'll go. The best leaders are those who check themselves. Uppity and I'm out.